The prince scorned the girl covered in barn dust, but a single word from her changed his fate. Before we begin this beautiful period romance story, tell me in the comments where you're listening from. I love knowing where you're joining me from. The autumn wind swept across the royal stables of Dunhaven Castle, stirring the scent of hay and pride. The sound of horses' hooves against stone, laughter of nobles half drunken with arrogance, filled the air like a trumpet of superiority. At their center walked Prince Alistair of Dunhaven, heir to a throne he already believed he owned. His boots were polished, his gloves spotless, his gaze sharper than the edge of a sword. Behind him trailed 3 young lords in embroidered coats, each eager to mirror the prince's disdain for all things humble. The hunt had gone well. Alistair's falcon had struck true, and the nobles praised his precision. But what he loved most was not victory. It was being seen victorious. Every gesture, every smirk was measured for admiration. The stables were his final stop before the evening feast. There, among the smell of leather and sweat, he could remind the servants of their place. He pushed open the stable doors. Inside, lanterns flickered. A mare whinnied softly, shifting in her stall. The hay was freshly turned, the air rich with dust. At first, Alistair thought the space empty, until he saw a small figure kneeling near a broken saddle. A young woman, her hands rough, her hair tangled with straw. She struggled to lift the leather frame, its girth strap snapped clean. "What wretched sight is this?" Lord Pembroke muttered behind him, smirking. A creature of dust in the prince's path. The girl startled, turning quickly, her eyes wide. Her dress was plain, the color of mud, its hem torn. She tried to rise but stumbled under the saddle's weight. The nobles chuckled. Alistair's voice cut through the air. "Who allows such disorder in my stables?" No one answered. The girl clutched the saddle as if to protect it from his tone. "I asked a question," he repeated, stepping closer. His boots crushed the hay. "Is this how servants honor Dunhaven's name? By rolling in the filth they were born from?" The laughter behind him grew louder. One of the lords added, "Perhaps she thinks dirt makes her noble." A tremor ran through the girl's shoulders, but she did not bow her head. She looked at him, straight at him, as if the rank that separated them meant nothing at all. "My lord," she said quietly. "The strap broke. I was repairing it." "Repairing?" He gave a short, cruel laugh. "You ruin what you touch, girl. Leave the horses to men who understand worth." Her father, the stable hand, stood frozen by the stalls, his cap in hand, fear carved into his face. "Your Highness, forgive her. She meant no disrespect." "Then teach her to keep her head low," Alistair snapped. The young woman's fingers tightened on the saddle. "It will hold, Your Highness. The leather is good, only pride makes it look weak." The words struck like an echo he could not explain. Pride. He frowned, not used to contradiction. "You dare lecture me?" A faint blush crossed her cheeks, but she did not retreat. "No, my lord. Only truth speaks when silence is too heavy," the nobles jeered. "Truth from a stable girl. Shall we kneel to her wisdom, Your Highness?" Alistair's anger flared hotter than he wished. He stepped closer, until only a breath separated them. Dust clung to her skin. Her eyes, green like the moors after rain, did not blink. "Tell me your name," he demanded. "Maeve," she whispered. He let the name roll in mockery. "Maeve. Remember this moment, Maeve, for you will never forget the day you tried to teach a prince his manners." The lords laughed again. Someone clapped. Maeve's father took a step forward, but she lifted a hand, stopping him. "I remember every cruelty I've seen, my lord," she said softly, "for cruelty always returns to the heart that gives it." Alistair stiffened. The barn seemed smaller suddenly, the air thick. He could have dismissed her, struck her, ordered her banished. Instead, he froze, not from mercy, but from something unfamiliar, disquiet. Then Maeve spoke again. "Your mother once said the same thing." The stable fell silent. Even the horses seemed to stop moving. Alistair stared at her. "What did you say?" Maeve's voice trembled slightly, yet her gaze stayed fixed. "Your mother, the queen, she said it in the meadow near the river, on the morning before the storm that took her life. She said, Cruelty is the wound that never heals. His heart stumbled. That memory was his alone, buried deep within his childhood. No one, not even his tutors, had been there. He felt his throat tighten. Who told you this? No one told me. Then how? She interrupted, her voice like a thread of wind. Because she said it to me. The laughter behind him died. The nobles shifted uneasily. Alistair's anger returned, fiercer now for the fear beneath it. You lie. Maeve shook her head. I do not. You were not yet born when my mother died. I was, she said, and I remember her voice. She called me by a name I was not meant to know. What name? He demanded. Maeve looked down, then raised her eyes once more, steady, filled with something beyond courage. Elandra. The sound fell like a blade cutting through air. Alistair's breath stopped. That name. The secret name his mother had whispered to him once, when he was a child frightened by thunder. A name used only between them, never spoken beyond the walls of the royal chambers. How do you know that word? His voice cracked, rough with disbelief. Maeve did not flinch, because she told me to remember it. She said one day it would set someone free. The nobles began murmuring. Lord Pembroke stepped forward, sneering. Your Highness, she toys with you. The girl's a liar, mad with dreams. But Alistair could not look away from her. Every part of him wanted to deny it, to crush the thought before it grew roots. Elandra, he repeated almost to himself. No one outside the palace knows that name. Then you see, Maeve said, her voice trembling now. It must have come from her. Her father's face turned white. Maeve, for mercy's sake, be silent. But she went on. She was kind, Your Highness. She said truth can live even in silence, but only courage can speak it. The prince's mind spun. He wanted to demand proof, to accuse her of witchcraft or deceit, yet something deeper. The echo of a lullaby, the scent of lavender and rain, rose in him, tearing apart his certainty. He whispered again. Who are you? Someone you forgot, she said. His temper broke. Enough. Do you think to frighten me with riddles? You'll answer for this insolence. Her father fell to his knees. Please, sire, she means no harm. Alistair turned on him. Then teach her her place. But Maeve stepped between them, her small frame steady. He cannot teach me what I already know, my lord. I know my place. And what place is that? He asked, voice sharp. She looked straight into his eyes. Beside the truth. The words hit harder than any weapon. The silence after them was unbearable. Then one of the nobles tried to laugh, but the sound died in his throat. Alistair's chest rose and fell too quickly. You will explain yourself before the steward. If this is some trick, you will pay dearly. Maeve bowed her head at last, but not in defeat. You may command my body, my lord, but not my memory. Her father took her arm, whispering for her to be silent, to beg forgiveness. But she gently pulled away and lifted the broken saddle again, as though it mattered more than the prince's fury. Alistair turned to leave, but something in him would not move. Elandra, he said again, the sound nearly breaking. Maeve looked up, and for an instant their eyes met like two worlds colliding, royalty and dust, arrogance and truth. Then she whispered, You have forgotten where you came from, my lord. He stood rooted, unable to speak. His companions exchanged looks, uneasy now. Lord Pembroke forced a laugh. Your Highness, come. The girl's madness is beneath your notice. But Alistair could not hear them. The word echoed inside him like the tolling of a bell. Forgotten where you came from. The phrase clung to his chest, heavy as guilt. Maeve placed the saddle on the rack and walked toward the back door of the stables. Her steps were slow, almost reverent. Dust followed her like a veil. Stop her, Alistair ordered, though he did not know why. His voice wavered, too soft to carry command. No one moved. Maeve paused at the door, glanced back once and said, Ask your heart what the word means. When you do, you'll find me again. The door creaked open, letting in the sharp breath of autumn. Then she was gone, into the fading light. Alistair's hand fell to his side. His nobles began to speak all at once, laughter forced, excuses ready, but he did not listen. He stared at the empty doorway, his mind filled with questions he could not bear to ask. Lord Pembroke placed a hand on his shoulder. "My prince, she's a common liar. Shall I have her whipped for her insolence?" Alistair turned sharply. "No." Pembroke blinked. "No, I'll speak with her myself tomorrow," he said, voice low. "Until then, no punishment." The lord hesitated. "As you wish, though I warn you, mercy makes servants bold." Alistair ignored him and walked deeper into the stable. He touched the broken saddle still resting on the rack. His mother's mare had worn one just like it. He could almost hear her laughter again, soft and fleeting, as if the word Elandra had opened a door to ghosts. He whispered it once more, testing the air. Elandra. The horses shifted restlessly, as if they too remembered. He looked toward the doorway where Maeve had vanished. The cold wind slipped through, carrying a faint trace of hay and something unnameable. Truth, perhaps. He clenched his fists. Tomorrow he would find her. Tomorrow she would answer every question. Yet a flicker of fear crawled up his spine. What if she already had? Outside, the evening sky deepened to gray. Somewhere beyond the fields, a bell rang from the chapel tower, calling the court to supper. The nobles filed out, murmuring among themselves. Only Alistair remained, staring at the dust that swirled where Maeve had stood.
He closed his eyes, and for the first time in his life, the silence of the stables felt louder than applause. The word Elandra echoed again and again inside him, until it was no longer a name, but a question that would not fade. The prince was left alone, the word Elandra echoing in his ears, and for the first time his arrogance trembled. The dawn after the stable incident broke grey and cold over Dunhaven Castle. The courtyard was unusually alive with whispers.
Servants exchanged glances as they polished boots or swept steps, murmuring of what had happened the evening before. The prince's temper, the servant girl's defiance, the strange word that had left the air trembling. By noon, the tale had reached the great hall, distorted with every retelling until it sounded like sorcery. Prince Alistair heard the rumours before breakfast ended. He ignored them, or tried to, but each careless whisper drove deeper into his pride. At the long table, Lord Pembroke smiled thinly across the bread and wine. "They say even a stable girl can make the heir to Dunhaven forget his manners," he said, voice low, pleasant enough to be poison. Alistair set down his cup with a sharp click. "They say too much." Pembroke's eyes glinted. "Indeed, Your Highness. Yet gossip has a curious way of turning into memory, when not silenced quickly. Then silence it. With respect, I would. But rumor thrives on curiosity. Best to show the court you're untouched by a servant's tongue. A public hunt tomorrow, perhaps. Let them see your composure restored." Alistair stared at him, knowing the suggestion was bait. Pembroke wanted him angry, wanted him careless. "The court will see what I wish it to see," he said, rising. "And they'll remember who commands this castle." But even as he left the hall, the word Elandra pulsed in his mind, alive and unyielding. He found his steward by the stables and demanded records. "Find me everything about the girl, Maeve, daughter of the stable hand. Where she was born, where she lived before she came here." The steward hesitated. "Of course, Your Highness. Though, I believe her family arrived only a few winters ago. They were recommended by Lord Pembroke's office." Alistair frowned. "By Pembroke?" "Yes, sire. The father was a caretaker at one of his estates before illness forced him north. That struck a strange chord. Bring me their papers." The steward bowed and hurried off. Alistair stood in the empty stable doorway, the scent of hay sharper now. He could still see Maeve standing there, dust in her hair, calm as though she had seen through him. By evening, the steward returned with a handful of old documents. They were brief, inconsistent, written in two different hands. Her father's name was Connor Byrne. Her mother, Aislinn, deceased. No birth record for Maeve herself, only a note claiming she was of age to serve. Nothing before their arrival at Dunhaven. "Nothing else?" Alistair asked. "Nothing, sire." He dismissed the man and read the documents again in silence. A lie, perhaps, or something hidden. Pembroke's connection to her family stirred unease in him. The next morning he went to the paddocks. Maeve was there, brushing the flank of a gray stallion. The sight of her startled him. He had not expected her to appear after yesterday's humiliation. When she noticed him, she froze, brush in hand. "Your Highness." "Maeve." His voice came quieter than he meant. "You're bold to remain." "I work where I'm told," she answered. "If I am to be dismissed, I'll hear it from you." He studied her, the dirt on her sleeves, the steady rhythm of her breathing. "You knew my mother's name. That's no small offense. I could have you punished." "I know," she said. "Then why aren't you afraid?" She met his eyes. "Because what I said was true." "Then prove it." Her hand tightened on the brush. "You won't believe proof that comes from me." "Try me." She hesitated, then spoke quietly. "There was a letter. I found it hidden inside the lining of an old saddle. Your mother's saddle. The mare she rode before the storm." Alistair stiffened. "That saddle was destroyed when she fell." "Not destroyed," Maeve said. "Repaired once. It was sent here, to the stables, years after her death. My father found the lining torn, and inside it, a letter sealed with her crest." He stared at her, every muscle tense. "And what did it say?" "I didn't read it at first," she admitted. "My father forbade me. But when the seal cracked from age, I saw the first lines. It was meant for you, my lord." She spoke of love and regret, and of a promise she could not keep. Alistair's voice dropped. "You expect me to believe this?" Maeve looked down. "No, I only hoped you would remember her kindness when you looked at those beneath you. Where is the letter now? I have it. Give it to me." "Not yet." His temper flared. "You dare withhold something that belongs to the crown?" "I dare protect what is not ready to be seen," she replied. "When your heart listens more than your pride, I'll return it." He took a step toward her, fury bright in his eyes. "You play dangerous games." "Do I?" she asked softly. "Or do you fear what you might learn?" The challenge struck him silent. The horse beside her snorted and pulled at its reins. Alistair forced his voice steady. "If what you say is true, then show me tonight. Bring the letter to me privately. You have my word, no harm will come to you." She shook her head. "Words are wind, Your Highness. I'll bring it when it's meant to be read." He grabbed her wrist before he realized what he was doing. Her skin was cold, roughened by work. She didn't pull away. She simply looked at him until the anger drained from his hand. He released her and stepped back, breathing hard. The silence stretched. Somewhere nearby, a stable door creaked. Maeve's father appeared at the far end, hat in hand. "Your Highness." "Forgive her," he said quickly. "She doesn't understand the danger of speaking to nobles." Alistair turned to him. "Perhaps she understands better than most." Connor Byrne bowed deeply. "She's young, reckless. I'll see she minds her place." "Do that," Alistair said curtly, then turned to leave. But Maeve's voice stopped him. "She minds the truth," she said. "That's all she's guilty of." He hesitated before walking out into the pale morning light, the echo of her voice chasing him across the yard. By midday, the whispers had returned, stronger than before. Some said the prince had struck the servant girl. Others claimed she had bewitched him with a secret word. Pembroke was smiling again. That evening, Alistair sat alone in his chambers, the candlelight flickering against the portrait of his mother. He looked into the painted eyes and felt the hollow space of memory widen inside him. The Queen's gentle smile seemed to fade as he stared. Who was she, truly? He murmured. There was a knock at the door. A servant entered, bowing low. "Your Highness, Lord Pembroke requests an audience." "Let him in." Pembroke entered, all charm and composure. "Forgive the intrusion, my prince. I come only with concern. It seems this servant girl has captured far too much attention. Some in the council wonder whether she speaks against the crown. For your protection, I've ordered her removal from service." Alistair straightened. "Removal? A polite word, of course. She'll be escorted from the castle by dawn, a quiet matter. You had no authority to do so without my consent." Pembroke's smile never wavered. "Forgive me, Your Highness, but I feared delay would invite more gossip. Better she vanish before her tongue causes trouble." "You presume too much. I serve the realm's peace," Pembroke said calmly, and the realm cannot afford to see its heir shaken by a servant's tale. Alistair rose, his voice sharp. You will reverse that order. I'm afraid it's already done. For a moment, silence filled the room like smoke. Then Alistair spoke slowly. You'll release her at once. I'll question her myself. Pembroke's gaze hardened just enough to betray satisfaction. You wish to speak with her? Alone? That will only deepen the scandal, Your Highness. Then so be it. Pembroke bowed with mock grace. As you command. But I must warn you, she'll not be found by morning. The wagons leave at dusk. Alistair strode past him without another word. He found the courtyard already in shadow. A group of guards were gathered by the gate, their torches flickering in the wind. Between them stood Maeve, a small bundle of belongings at her feet, her father beside her, pleading quietly. Stop, Alistair ordered, his voice carrying across the yard. The guards froze. Maeve turned, her eyes catching the torchlight. She said nothing. By whose command is this? Alistair demanded. One guard stammered, Lord Pembroke, Your Highness. Then it's revoked. Begging pardon, sire, the man replied. But Lord Pembroke said, I am the heir of Dunhaven, Alistair cut in. You'll obey my word, not his. The guards exchanged uncertain glances. Pembroke appeared behind them, his expression calm as ever. My prince, please. This scene benefits no one. Let the girl go. It will quiet the court. Enough, Alistair said. Bring her inside. Pembroke's voice softened, but there was steel beneath. If you defy the council's order, they will see it as weakness. Is that what you wish? Alistair turned to him slowly. I wish to know the truth. Maeve spoke then, quiet but firm. Let it be, my lord. He only seeks to protect you from what he fears. Pembroke glared at her. You will hold your tongue, girl. She faced him calmly. You fear words more than blades, my lord. The crowd of servants that had gathered gasped softly. Pembroke's face tightened. Enough of this insolence. Guards, touch her, and you'll answer to me, Alistair said. The silence that followed seemed to stretch across the courtyard. The torches hissed in the wind. Finally, Pembroke inclined his head. Very well, Your Highness. If you wish to entangle yourself in peasant fables, so be it. I wash my hands of it. He turned and walked away, the echo of his boots hard against the stones. Maeve looked after him, then at Alistair. You shouldn't have done that. You think I fear Pembroke? You should fear what he hides, she said softly. He will not rest until silence is restored. Her father stepped forward, anxious. Please, sire, let us go quietly. We mean no harm. We ask only peace. Alistair studied them both, the exhaustion in their faces, the faint defiance in Maeve's. You'll have protection under my name until I decide otherwise. That's all. Maeve bowed her head. Thank you, my lord. But protection is not what I came to give. What then? She looked up. The truth you're not ready for. Before he could reply, a servant ran into the yard, breathless. Your Highness, the council calls for you. Urgent business in the throne room. Alistair clenched his jaw. Stay here, he told Maeve. Do not move until I return. He followed the servant into the great hall, his steps echoing. The chamber was full, the lords already assembled, Pembroke at their head. Pembroke bowed slightly. Your Highness, we have discussed the matter of your distraction. The council agrees that the girl's removal is in the realm's best interest. You presume to decide what serves the realm, Alistair said coldly. Pembroke's smile was polite. Then act, sire. Prove your authority, or watch your reputation crumble. The argument stretched long into the night, voices rising, pride clashing against reason. By the time Alistair returned to the courtyard, the torches were dying, the wind stronger. The guards were gone. The wagon tracks cut deep into the mud. Maeve and her father were nowhere to be seen. A servant hurried toward him, eyes wide with fear. Your Highness, Lord Pembroke gave new orders while you were in council. The girl, she's been sent away under escort. They left not half an hour past. Alistair's heart went cold. Where? To the northern road, sire. Pembroke said the king himself ordered it. He didn't wait to hear more. He turned toward the gates, the night air biting against his skin, fury and confusion driving him forward. A moment later, the last torch at the gate flickered out, and the road beyond lay in darkness. A servant burst into his chambers to announce that Maeve had been dismissed from the castle, exiled by Lord Pembroke's order. The night that followed Maeve's exile was long and sleepless for Prince Alistair. The fire in his chamber burned low, forgotten, as he paced before the window overlooking the empty courtyards of Dunhaven Castle. His mind refused peace. Every sound, the whistle of wind, the rustle of drapes, seemed to whisper the word she had spoken. Elandra, his mother's secret name. He could not rest. By dawn, he summoned his horse, dismissed his attendants, and rode north before the castle stirred. The guards called after him, but he did not answer. The road wound through the misted moors, wet with dew and silence. His breath came in clouds as he urged his horse faster, chasing the tracks left by the wagons that had taken Maeve away. Hours passed before he caught sight of them, 2 riders ahead, escorting a small cart. He drew closer, keeping to the trees. The cart carried a single passenger, her brown hair loose beneath a shawl. Maeve. His pulse quickened. When the road narrowed by the riverbank, he spurred his horse forward and blocked their path. The startled guards reached for their reins, one shouting, "Who goes there?" "Your prince," Alistair said, his voice hard. "Stand aside." The men hesitated, unsure. Then one dismounted, bowing quickly. "Your Highness, Lord Pembroke's orders." "My orders outrank his. Release her." They exchanged nervous glances. Maeve's eyes met his through the morning haze, calm, unshaken. "Let them be, my lord," she said. "They only follow command." "Your command comes from me now," Alistair replied. The guard stepped back. He dismounted, walked to the cart, and held out his hand. "Come, you are not leaving Dunhaven like a criminal." She hesitated, then took his hand. Her palm was cold, her grip steady. "You risk much for a servant," she murmured. "I risk nothing compared to what I've lost," he said. Once the guards were dismissed, he led her horse to the riverside. The air smelled of wet earth and pine. They rode in silence until the castle walls were only a blur behind them. When they reached the shelter of a ruined chapel near the woods, he stopped and turned to her. "Now tell me everything," he said. "Every word you read in that letter." Maeve looked down at her hands. "You wouldn't believe me. I followed you into exile. Try me." She reached into the folds of her cloak and drew out a small parcel, wrapped in linen. Inside lay a torn piece of parchment, the ink faded but legible. "It was sealed with your mother's crest. The words are not all clear, but what remains will change everything you know." He took the letter, his fingers trembling slightly. The first lines were familiar, his mother's handwriting. "To my dearest son, if this reaches you, truth has found its courage." He read silently until the words blurred. Then he looked at Maeve, disbelief in his eyes. "This speaks of another child, of a promise to protect a friend's newborn. It says the two were hidden together in the same chamber, that one might live, if the other was lost." Maeve nodded slowly. "My father told me my mother served the Queen. She died the night of the storm. He said the Queen wept when she held the child, that she promised the girl would be safe no matter the cost." Alistair felt his chest tighten. "You think this letter means—" "I think you were not the only child in the royal cradle," she said softly. "Maybe not even the one meant for the throne." He dropped the letter to his lap. "Impossible." "Is it?" she asked. "The Queen loved you, yes, but love does not always follow blood." He stared at her, anger flashing through confusion. "You're saying I'm not her son? That I was switched like a pawn in some court intrigue?" "I'm saying only that someone feared for a life that night," Maeve said. "And the letter was hidden because truth was dangerous." He rose abruptly, pacing the chapel floor. "Dangerous indeed. If Pembroke learns of this, he'll use it to destroy me. He's waited years for something like this." Maeve gathered the torn parchment, careful not to meet his gaze. "Then you must protect it. The letter's yours now." He looked at her sharply. "You trust me with it after everything?" She smiled faintly. "You may not trust yourself, but I do." Her calm disarmed him more than anger ever could. He studied her face, seeing not the servant, but something stronger, a quiet certainty that frightened him. "Why risk so much to show me this?" he asked. Because truth belongs to those it changes, she said, not to those who hide it. For a long moment, neither spoke. The chapel walls stood like gray ghosts around them, wind humming through the broken arches. Then the sound of hooves shattered the stillness. Alistair turned toward the doorway. Beyond the trees, riders approached. 5, maybe 6. The glint of armor caught the light. Pembroke's men. Maeve's face went pale. He's found us. Go, Alistair said, gripping the letter. I'll hold them off. You can't face him alone. I'm not facing him. I'm saving you. She stepped forward. You don't even know if you want this truth. Don't throw your life away for it. He looked at her, his eyes fierce. I don't yet know who I am, but I know what I will not be. A coward. She hesitated, then reached out and caught his sleeve. There's a path behind the chapel. It leads to the river bend. My father waits there. He'll hide you both until the search passes. He shook his head. No, you go with him. I won't leave without you. The sound of horses grew louder. Alistair seized her hand and pulled her toward the back wall. Go! Together they slipped through the broken archway and down the narrow path through the undergrowth. The shouts of men echoed behind them. Torches flickered between the trees. They reached the riverbank where a small cottage stood, half hidden by reeds. An older man stepped out, Connor Byrne. His face drained of color when he saw the prince. Your Highness, what have you done? No time, Maeve said. Pembroke's men are close. Connor turned to his daughter. You should have burned that letter. Alistair held it up. And lose the last truth my mother left? Never. The older man's voice trembled. Then hide it, for if they find it, it will destroy you both. Maeve's gaze darted toward the trees. They're here. Connor moved quickly, pointing to a hollow near the river's edge. Go down the bank. There's an old bridge half a mile east. Cross it and follow the ridge. It leads to the old mill. No one goes there now. Alistair nodded. And you? I'll keep them talking, the old man said. It's all I can do. Maeve caught her father's arm. You'll be safe, he smiled faintly. I survived worse storms than this. Alistair pulled Maeve toward the river. They ran, mud splashing beneath their boots, the sound of pursuit growing nearer. When they reached the broken bridge, the wood groaned under their weight. Maeve stumbled once, but he caught her arm and guided her across. On the far bank, they paused to breathe. Behind them, torches glowed among the trees. Voices shouted commands. They're burning the cottage, Maeve whispered. Alistair's stomach twisted. Your father. He'll find a way, she said, though her voice broke on the words. They moved on, following the narrow ridge to the mill. The structure stood silent against the horizon, its wheel half sunken into the river. Inside, dust hung thick in the air. Alistair dropped onto a beam, clutching the letter. Maeve sank beside him. You can't stay here long. Pembroke won't rest. I'll return to the castle at dawn, he said. If I run, he wins. He'll twist this to claim I fled from guilt. Then what will you do? I'll face him. He'll destroy you before the king ever hears you speak. He looked at her. Then I'll speak louder. She shook her head, almost smiling despite her fear. You sound more like the man your mother wrote about than the one who mocked me in the stables. Her words cut deep, but warmed something within him. He touched the folded parchment. This truth, it changes everything. I may not be who I thought I was. Or maybe, Maeve said softly, you've finally become who you were meant to be. The mill creaked as the wind pushed against its broken frame. They sat in silence, the letter between them. Then, in the distance, a horn sounded. Pembroke's call. Maeve's face went white. They've found us. Alistair stood, scanning the trees. The torches moved closer, their light flickering through the branches. He turned to Maeve. Give me the letter. It's yours. He hesitated, then pressed it back into her hand. If I'm caught, they'll take everything. Keep it safe. Hide it. Promise me. She clutched it to her chest. I promise. The shouts came closer. Horses splashed through the shallows below. Alistair drew her toward the back wall of the mill. Go through the hatch. It opens to the riverbank. Follow it east until you find shelter. I won't leave you. You must, he said firmly. The letter's what matters now. Her eyes filled with tears she refused to let fall. You're a prince. They'll listen to you. They'll listen to Pembroke's lies before they hear one truth from me. A crash echoed outside, the front doors breaking open. Torches flared. Alistair turned to her one last time. Run, Maeve. She hesitated, then nodded once and slipped through the hatch, vanishing into the dark. Moments later, the men stormed in. Pembroke rode at their head, his face cold and triumphant. Your Highness, he said, dismounting, I feared you'd lost your way. The king grows anxious when his son disappears into the woods. Alistair met his gaze without flinching. You knew where I was. You followed me here. I followed treason, Pembroke said quietly. A servant girl spreading lies of royal blood, and you defending her. What am I to think? That you fear the truth more than treason? Pembroke's smile was thin. The truth, Your Highness, is what the council decides it to be. And they will decide soon. He gestured to his men. Search the place. Find the girl. They scattered, overturning barrels and tearing through shadows. Alistair kept his eyes on Pembroke. If she's harmed, you'll answer for it. Pembroke tilted his head. If she's what you say, perhaps she's safer hidden. After all, what use is a servant who knows a prince's secrets? Alistair took a step forward, fury in his voice. Enough, Pembroke. The older man smiled faintly. As you wish, my prince, but I warn you, this little rebellion of the heart will cost you more than pride. He turned to leave, giving a final command to his soldiers. The torches vanished one by one into the woods. When the last hoofbeat faded, Alistair sank to his knees, the weight of it all pressing down. The smell of smoke drifted from the direction of the river. Through the broken wall, he caught a glimpse of Maeve's silhouette, far away on the opposite bank, running into the mist with the letter clutched against her heart. A single spark fell from a torch left behind, landing on the hay. The flame rose quickly, licking at the wooden beams. Alistair stared at the fire spreading through the mill, realizing too late that Pembroke had left him surrounded by kindling and smoke. Maeve is taken by Pembroke's men, the letter torn from her hands, as Alistair watches helplessly from the trees. The fire at the mill burned through the night, its glow visible even from the towers of Dunhaven Castle. When Alistair returned at dawn, ash still clung to his coat, and his face bore the mark of sleeplessness and smoke. He entered through the servants' gate, unnoticed, his horse lathered and trembling. Inside, the corridors buzzed with rumors, whispers of treachery, of a servant girl taken in chains, of a letter that could ruin a prince. He went straight to the council chamber. The great doors opened before him with a heavy groan. Inside, the nobles were already gathered. At the head of the table stood Lord Pembroke, speaking in a measured tone. His Highness has been misled, Pembroke was saying. A false document, forged by a servant, claimed to expose some ancient secret. She sought favor through deceit. The prince's compassion, though admirable, was used against him. Every head turned as Alistair entered. Pembroke's voice faltered for only a breath before recovering its poise. Ah, the prince himself graces us. Alistair's boots struck the stone floor as he crossed the chamber. You speak of lies, my lord. Perhaps we should begin with yours. A ripple of unease moved through the room. Pembroke folded his hands behind his back. Your Highness, you return unannounced, disheveled, after disappearing without guard or escort. The council feared the worst. The worst, Alistair said coldly, is a council ruled by cowards. Gasps followed. The king's advisor, an elderly man named Lord Cavan, raised a hand. Your Highness, please. We seek understanding, not insult. Then understand this, Alistair said. The girl you condemned did not forge that letter. I saw it. I read it. My mother wrote it. Murmurs filled the hall. Pembroke's face hardened. You would stake your crown on the word of a peasant? I would stake my honor on truth, Alistair replied. Pembroke moved closer, his tone sharp but low. And if that truth destroys everything your mother built, will you unmake your own name to protect a servant's fantasy? Alistair held his gaze. If a name stands on deceit, it deserves to fall. For the first time, Pembroke's composure cracked. You forget yourself. No, Alistair said quietly. For the first time, I remember who I am. The council chamber fell silent. Lord Cavan rose, his old voice trembling. Your Highness, these are grave words. If you possess this letter, the council must see it. I would show it, Alistair said, but it was taken from the girl when Pembroke's men seized her. Perhaps he has it now. All eyes turned toward Pembroke. His jaw tightened. If such a letter exists, it contains treason against the throne. I had it destroyed. You burned it? Alistair demanded. To protect you, Pembroke answered. A voice from the back of the hall interrupted, soft, yet clear. Then your protection has done enough harm, my lord. The doors had opened again. Maeve stood there, flanked by 2 guards. Her dress was torn at the sleeve, her hair disheveled, but her gaze was steady. The guards hesitated, uncertain whether to restrain her further. Alistair turned to her, a wave of relief passing through him. Maeve! She inclined her head. Your Highness. Pembroke stepped forward, furious. Who allowed this prisoner inside? Lord Cavan raised a hand. If she holds a key to the truth, she will speak. The council demands it. Maeve took a slow breath. The letter is not lost. Pembroke's face went pale. You lie. She reached into her bodice and drew out a folded scrap of parchment, scorched at the edges. You took the copy I carried, she said. But the Queen's hand wrote 2, one to her son, one to the woman who served her. My mother's letter never burned. Alistair stepped closer. You have it still? Maeve nodded and handed it to Lord Cavan. The old man unfolded the parchment and began to read aloud, his voice trembling. To those who bear my name or my kindness, know that I acted to protect what love alone could not keep safe. If fate spares them, one child shall wear the crown, and the other shall guard its truth. The chamber was silent. Cavan lowered the page. It bears the Queen's seal. Pembroke's fury could no longer hide behind formality. This proves nothing. Sentiment from a dying woman, vague words. They could mean anyone. Maeve met his glare. They mean her promise, to protect my mother's child and yours alike. You feared the truth because it bound us together. Alistair turned on Pembroke. You knew. You served my mother's court. You hid her secret for your own gain. Pembroke's hands trembled at his sides. I protected the realm from ruin. What would you have had me do? Announce that the Queen's heir might not be her own blood? Truth would have spared us both, Alistair said. Instead, you built your power on a lie. The older man's voice broke through clenched teeth. You were never meant to learn it. The lie made you strong. The truth will undo you. Alistair straightened. Then let it. I would rather be undone by truth than upheld by deceit. The council watched, breathless. No one spoke. Then Lord Cavan approached the prince and bowed his head. Your Highness, the realm honors courage above blood. The Queen's love made you her son. That is enough for Dunhaven. Pembroke gave a hollow laugh. So you choose compassion over law. Compassion built the law, Cavan said. Alistair turned to Maeve. You brought this truth into light, even when it could have destroyed you. She looked at him quietly. You destroyed the man you were when you mocked a servant in dust. The one before me needs no crown to be noble. He stepped closer, his voice low. You forgive me, after all I've done? Forgiveness isn't a gift, she said softly. It's a debt I pay to my own heart. The court watched as he bowed his head to her, a gesture no one could recall a prince ever making. Then let my crown be the first to bend to truth. The moment broke the hall's stillness. Some nobles knelt, others stared in stunned disbelief. Pembroke alone stood unmoved, eyes dark with rage. You think this ends it? He said. You think the court will accept a stable girl at your side? Alistair lifted his head. I think the court will follow the will of its prince. Pembroke's hand clenched at his cloak. You will ruin us all. Then I will rebuild us with honesty. Guards entered at a signal from Lord Cavan. Pembroke saw them approach and understood his fall was complete. You're a fool, he hissed. Kindness will kill you faster than any sword. Alistair's answer was quiet. Then let kindness be my weapon. The guards took Pembroke by the arms. He did not resist, but his final words lingered as they led him away. Truth makes traitors of us all, boy. Remember that when the throne grows cold. When the doors closed behind him, the tension broke. Some nobles applauded softly. Others whispered among themselves. But Alistair heard only the sound of Maeve's breath beside him. He turned to her. You should rest. You've borne too much. I will, she said, when I know you'll do the same. He smiled faintly, weary but lighter than he had been in years. Stay in the castle. I'll see no harm comes to you or your father. Her eyes softened. And what of your crown? He looked toward the high windows, where the morning sun was breaking through the gray. It weighs less now than it did yesterday. For the first time since his mother's death, Alistair felt peace take root where pride once stood. That night, a soft rain fell over Dunhaven. The castle slept in rare stillness. Alistair walked through the quiet corridors until he reached the chapel. Candles flickered before the marble likeness of his mother. Maeve was there already, her shawl drawn close around her shoulders. She would be proud of you, she said without turning. Would she forgive me? He asked. Maeve smiled faintly. Mothers forgive before we ask. He stepped beside her, both of them gazing up at the calm face of the Queen's statue. What will you do now? He asked. Whatever truth asks of me, she said. It's been waiting long enough. He reached for her hand, his voice quiet. And if truth asks that you stay? She hesitated, then looked at him. Then I'll stay. He nodded, relief and something deeper in his expression. Tomorrow, I'll face the court. They will expect a prince to speak of power. Instead, they will hear of mercy. They may not like what they hear, she warned. They will learn, he replied. The chapel bells began to ring softly, echoing through the halls. It was the hour before dawn. Maeve's voice broke the stillness. Do you ever fear what tomorrow might take from you? He looked at her. Not anymore. Tomorrow is only frightening when we have something to hide. She smiled, the first true smile he'd seen from her. Then we are free already. He reached for her hand again, this time without hesitation. The door opened quietly behind them. Lord Cavan entered, his expression gentle. Your Highness, the council awaits you in the throne room. They are ready to hear your word. Alistair gave a slow nod. Then let them hear it. Maeve squeezed his hand once before letting go. Go. Show them the man truth made. He left the chapel with a steady stride. The corridors, once filled with scornful whispers, seemed to bow in silence as he passed. Servants paused to watch him. No longer the cold prince of old, but something humbler, stronger. When he entered the throne room, the council rose. The great chair stood before him, the symbol of power he had once worn like armor. He did not sit. My mother's throne will wait until I am worthy to bear it, he said. Today I speak not as a ruler, but as a man. His voice carried through the hall, calm and certain. He spoke of mercy, of the duty of nobles to the humble, of truth's power to cleanse what pride corrodes. He named Maeve and her father as honored servants of the crown and vowed protection for every soul wronged by arrogance. When he finished, silence held the room. Then one by one, the lords bowed. Maeve, watching from the doorway, felt tears rise but did not let them fall. The realm, for the first time, saw its prince not as heir, but as hope. The truth was no longer a weapon. It was a bond. Spring came early to Dunhaven that year. The frost melted sooner, the grass shone greener, and the wind carried the scent of new beginnings. The castle, once heavy with silence and rumor, now thrummed with laughter and music. For the first time in memory, the common folk were welcomed within the outer gates. Banners fluttered from the turrets. The bells rang all morning, and every window blazed with light. Prince Alistair stood before his mirror, fastening the clasp of his cloak. The reflection that met him was not the proud, untouchable air of the past. The gold embroidery felt less like armor now, more like a promise. His valet watched from the side, trembling with excitement. Your Highness, they're waiting, the man said softly. Alistair smiled faintly. Let them wait a moment longer. I want the sound of the bells to find her first. Outside, in the courtyard below, Maeve stood surrounded by attendants who fussed over ribbons and lace. Her gown was simple, cream-colored linen, trimmed with pearls, but she wore it as if it were woven from sunlight. Her hands shook slightly as she tried to calm her breath. Her father, Connor Byrne, adjusted her veil with fingers that trembled no less than hers. "You look just like your mother did," he whispered. Maeve smiled. She never stood in a castle courtyard. "No," he said, his eyes glistening. "But she gave you the courage to stand where others would not." The gates opened. The sound of the bells deepened, rolling across the valley like a hymn. People crowded the walls, shouting blessings. Children waved flowers. For the first time, a royal wedding joined the court and the common people, and every soul knew the story of the girl from the stables who had spoken a word that changed a prince. Alistair appeared at the top of the grand stair, the sun at his back. He looked down and saw her waiting, Maeve with her head bowed and her smile trembling. The sight caught his breath. He descended slowly, his every step an echo of all that had brought them there. The cruelty, the doubt, the fire, the truth. When he reached her, the noise faded. "Maeve Byrne," he said, his voice steady. "The heart of Dunhaven beats louder because of you." She raised her eyes to his. "It beat long before I came, my lord. I only reminded it to listen." The crowd murmured in delight. Alistair extended his hand. "Then walk beside me, and let the world listen with us." She took his hand. Together they walked to the chapel where the priest waited. As they passed, petals fell from the balconies. No one bowed or whispered. They watched in reverent silence, as though witnessing something sacred and entirely new. Inside the chapel, sunlight streamed through the tall windows. The scent of lilies filled the air. The priest's voice rose above the hush. "Do you, Alistair of Dunhaven, take this woman, Maeve Byrne, to stand beside you in truth, as equal in heart and faith?" Alistair looked into her eyes. "With all that I am." "And do you, Maeve Byrne, take this man, not for his crown, but for his courage to learn love?" Maeve's lips curved. "I take the man, not the crown." Laughter rippled softly through the room. The priest smiled, blessing them with a gesture. "Then let this union heal what pride once broke. What truth joined, let no hand divide." When Alistair kissed her, the bells rang again, long, clear, and jubilant. Outside, the people cheered so loudly that the windows shook. After the vows, they walked together through the castle gardens, away from the noise. The sun hung low, painting gold over the stones. For a while, neither spoke. Then Maeve stopped and turned toward him. "Do you ever think of that day in the stables?" she asked. He laughed softly. "Every day. It was the first time anyone dared tell me the truth. And the last time you called me filth," she teased. He smiled, a little ashamed. "I deserved worse." "You found worse," she said gently, "and came back better." He brushed his fingers against hers. "I used to believe power came from being obeyed. Now I know it comes from being forgiven." She looked up at him, her eyes reflecting the fading light. "And I used to believe love belonged only to those born above others. Now I see it grows anywhere it's allowed to breathe." The wind lifted her veil, and he caught it before it drifted away. Their laughter mingled with the sound of the river below the garden wall. Behind them, Lord Cavan approached slowly, leaning on his cane. "Your Highness," he said, bowing. "The council asks for your word before the feast. Shall I tell them you will attend?" Alistair nodded. "Tell them their prince will dine as a man among his people." The old man smiled faintly. "A new kind of kingdom, then. A truer one," Alistair said. When Cavan left, Maeve turned to him with a playful look. "You're changing everything they've ever known." He grinned. "Then help me keep changing it." They returned to the courtyard as the torches were lit. Tables stretched across the square, filled with nobles and servants alike. The smell of roasted bread and spiced wine carried through the air. Music rose. A fiddle, a drum, and the rhythmic clapping of hands. Children danced among the tables, chasing ribbons. Alistair stood and lifted his cup. "To truth," he called, his voice ringing over the laughter. "To the word that set us free." The crowd cheered. Maeve raised her cup beside him. "To kindness," which gave that word meaning. They drank together, smiling as the crowd erupted into song. Later that night, when the music softened and the guests drifted toward the fire pits, Maeve and Alistair slipped away again, down to the stables where it had all begun. The lanterns flickered low, the smell of hay and horses wrapping around them like memory. Maeve traced her hand along the wooden stall. "It feels smaller now," she said. "It feels honest," he replied. "Everything began here." He turned to her, his face illuminated by the lamplight. "I once thought this place beneath me. Now I see it held the only treasure I ever needed." She smiled. "Dust and truth? And you," he said. She blushed and looked down. "You're still a prince, even when you try to sound humble." He laughed softly. "Then allow me to speak not as a prince, but as the man who once watched you disappear through that door and feared he'd never see you again." She stepped closer. "And now I can't imagine a world without you in it." For a moment, there was only the sound of the horses breathing, the quiet rustle of straw. He took her hands, his voice barely above a whisper. "You turned my shame into grace. You taught me that love isn't earned. It's remembered." Maeve's eyes filled with tears she didn't hide. "Then remember it always." He kissed her forehead gently. "I will." They stood together as the lanterns burned lower. Outside, the stars brightened over Dunhaven, the night cool and sweet. When they finally stepped out, hand in hand, the castle bells tolled midnight. The people had not yet left. Songs still drifted through the courtyard. As Alistair and Maeve appeared, the crowd erupted once more. "Long live the prince and his lady!" someone shouted. "Long live truth!" cried another. Maeve laughed, tears on her cheeks. Alistair raised their joined hands. "Long live every soul brave enough to speak it!" The cheering rose higher, sweeping through the night until it reached the hills beyond the castle. The following morning dawned clear and bright. Birds filled the courtyards, pecking at the remnants of the feast. Alistair and Maeve stood on the balcony, watching the people depart for their villages, waving as they went. "They'll tell our story," she said. He nodded. Let them remember that even princes can kneel, and even servants can rise." She turned to him, her eyes soft. "What will they call it, do you think?" He smiled. "The story of a word." Her lips curved. "Elandra." The sound hung between them like a blessing. He drew her into his arms, resting his forehead against hers. "My mother's word for mercy. The word that brought me back to life." Maeve whispered, "Then say it again." He did, quietly, as though speaking to the wind. "Elandra." She smiled through her tears. "Now it belongs to both of us." Below them, the bells began to ring again, soft at first, then stronger, as if the whole castle joined in their vow. Servants looked up, smiling. Children pointed. And in that light, with the echoes of their promise filling the air, Alistair turned to her once more. "Maeve Byrne," he said, his voice full of warmth and certainty, "you are my truth, my mercy, and my beginning." "And you," she replied, "are the proof that love can mend what pride destroyed." He laughed, the sound breaking free like sunlight. "Then let us build a kingdom where no one must bow to be seen." "Together," she said. He took her hand, and they stepped forward onto the balcony where all could see them. The crowd below erupted into applause, their joy rising like music. As the wind carried the sound across the hills, Alistair leaned close to her ear and whispered, "The word that changed my fate was not Elandra. It was Maeve." She looked at him, startled, and then laughed softly through her tears. "Then may it be the last word you ever forget." The bells rang louder, the sunlight flooding over them, and for a moment it seemed the entire world stood still, breathing, believing, remembering. The story of the prince and the girl covered in barn dust had become a legend of mercy, of pride turned to love, of truth reborn as joy. And as they kissed beneath the sound of the bells, the wind carried their laughter through the fields, across the river, and beyond the moors, reminding every heart that a single word, spoken with courage, can rewrite destiny. Thank you so much for listening to this story all the way to the end. We hope it moved you as much as it moved us while telling it. We'd love to hear your thoughts. Leave us a comment telling us where you're listening from and what you liked the most. Rate this story from 0 to 10. What score would you give it? If you enjoyed this story, don't forget to subscribe to the channel and leave a like as a show of support. That really motivates us to keep creating and sharing more stories full of emotion and life lessons. And before we go, we want to remind you that an exciting and heartwarming story recommendation will appear on the final screen. If you'd like to enjoy it, just click on the video. Thank you once again for being here, and we'll see you in the next story.